the last breath of an empire. For more than 1,000 years, one city stood between East and West. Its walls had seen the rise and fall of empires. Rome had burned, kingdoms had vanished into dust. But Constantinople endured. The city of emperors, the queen of cities, the last light of a dying world. Behind those ancient stones, prayers rose like smoke into a cold spring sky. Priests whispered in the Hagia Sophia. Soldiers sharpened their swords. And on the horizon, the earth trembled. From the east came a storm, vast, unrelenting, unstoppable. At its heart rode a young sultan, barely 21, but already dreaming of eternity. His name was Mehmed, and he came not for conquest, but for destiny. Hundreds of ships filled the Bosphorus. 60,000 soldiers stood ready. Turks, Janissaries, mercenaries from every corner of the empire. Before them, only a single city, a wall of stone and faith. Inside there were no legions left, no empire, only the shadow of one, barely 7,000 defenders, Greeks, Venetians, and a few who still believed Rome lived. Their leader, Constantine XI Palaiologos, the last emperor of Byzantium. He knew the truth. The walls could not hold forever. The world had moved on. Yet he swore to fight, not for victory, but for honor. As dawn broke over the Bosphorus, he climbed the highest tower and watched the enemy camps stretch to the horizon. The sea was black with sails, the land alive with fire. And still he whispered, "Better to die as a king than live as a slave." The gates of Constantinople closed for the last time. And so began the final chapter of the Roman Empire.
Subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like and share this video.
The city of God, Constantinople. A city built on prophecy, half in Europe, half in Asia. They called it the New Rome, the heart of Christendom. For 1,000 years its domes touched the sky.
Its marble walls shone like the sea. Inside the Hagia Sophia, the air was thick with incense and faith. Golden mosaics glittered above the crowd, saints and emperors staring down through centuries of glory. But outside those walls, the empire was dying. Once, legions marched in its name. Now the treasury was empty. The proud fleets of Byzantium were gone, replaced by whispers and fear. Yet still the people believed. They prayed that the walls, the great Theodosian walls, would protect them as they always had. Those walls had never fallen. For centuries they had stood against Persians, Arabs, Crusaders. But now they faced something different. A cannon so large it could break the world itself, built by a man named Urban, forged from hunger and genius. When Mehmed offered him gold, he gave the Sultan a weapon no wall had ever endured. The people watched as the first stones flew. The ground shook, windows shattered, statues cracked. Still, the emperor did not yield. He walked among his men, armor worn, eyes hollow, but voice unbroken. "We fight for God, for our homes, for the last empire of men." That night, candles burned in every window. Mothers sang to their children as the sky thundered beyond the walls. And above it all, the great cross of Hagia Sophia gleamed like a final star against the dark. The city of God was still standing, but dawn would bring judgment. The siege begins. Night fell upon the city, and the world held its breath. From the hills beyond the Golden Horn came a low thunder, the sound of cannons awakening. For 40 days and nights, Constantinople stood under fire. The sky burned with smoke, the earth trembled beneath the roar of bronze. Walls that had defied centuries now cracked like dry bone. Still, the defenders fought on. The Genoese commander, Giovanni Giustiniani, led from the front. A foreigner, yet more Roman than those he fought for. Together with the emperor, he moved from tower to tower, sealing every breach, lifting every fallen banner. Each dawn brought new assaults. Thousands of Janissaries advanced, their drums echoing like the heartbeat of fate. But the narrow walls turned their strength against them. The Greeks poured oil, arrows, stones, anything that could kill. And still, the tide came. Inside the city, hunger began to whisper. Bread grew scarce, water turned to dust, yet every night the Hagia Sophia filled with voices. Men, women, and children knelt together, praying for a miracle that would never come. On the 7th week, Mehmed ordered a plan that would break history itself. His ships, trapped behind the great chain of the Golden Horn, could not reach the harbor. So he commanded them to cross the land. Through forests and over hills, 70 ships slid on greased timbers, pulled by men and oxen, until they rose above the walls themselves. When the people awoke, they saw sails where no sea had ever been. The impossible had come to pass. Even the emperor knew the end was near. Still, he stood his ground. He gathered his men and spoke. "We fight for faith, for freedom, for the soul of the world." Then came the final command. Mehmed ordered every soldier, every cannon, every man of war to prepare. The next dawn would be the end of an empire. On the night of May 28th, the moon rose blood red. The city slept under fire, and as the wind carried the smell of smoke and salt, the last emperor of Rome took communion in the Hagia Sophia. He laid aside his crown, knelt before the altar, and whispered, "Lord, into your hands I place my soul and my city." Outside the walls, the Ottoman torches burned like stars. The drums began to beat once more. The final assault had begun. The breach and the fall. Dawn, May 29th. The sky was crimson, as if the heavens themselves bled for the city. Then came the roar. The walls shook. 1,000 voices screamed, "Allah Akbar!" The Janissaries surged forward, wave upon wave of steel and fury. The Greeks met them with fire and iron, every arrow, every stone, every heartbeat defying the inevitable. For hours, chaos consumed the walls. Smoke and screams mixed with the clash of metal. The defenders fought like men who had already died. Giustiniani fell, struck by an arrow, his armor torn, blood flooding the stones. Panic spread. The gate at St. Romanus cracked under the cannon's wrath, and through the breach the empire ended. Constantine XI, the last emperor of Rome, threw away his purple cloak. "The city is lost," he said, "but not my soul." Then he charged into the flood, sword in hand, disappearing beneath the sea of soldiers, never to be seen again. By midday, the banners of the crescent flew above the towers. The Hagia Sophia fell silent. Thousands gathered inside, priests, women, children, seeking sanctuary beneath the golden dome. When Mehmed entered, he rode through the broken gates on a white horse. The city that had defied the world now lay before him in ashes. He dismounted, stepped into the Hagia Sophia, and gazed at the great cross above. Then, in a voice that carried through eternity, he whispered, "There is no God but God." The bells of Christendom rang no more. The Roman Empire, that had lived for 1,000 years, died that day. And yet, in death, it was reborn. For from those ashes, the Ottoman Empire would rise, and from its fall, a new world would begin. Today, the city is called Istanbul. Its stones still remember the day when East met West, and faith met fire. Empires rise, empires fall. But the dream of Constantinople, of glory, faith, and defiance, still lingers in the dust. The Fall of Constantinople, 1453. Like the walls that once guarded the world, history never truly falls. Like share, subscribe, for those who still remember.